just in case I forget which car this is. So for a smaller SUV, it's not bad. It has adequate room. It's about the size of a CX-3, CX-5, something like that in the Mazda world. About the size of a Honda CUV, I think it is. And there's a little welcome sign, a little welcome note when you come in. I'm going to put this down. It's on my seatbelt. That way. You might wonder about my special equipment for making videos, and I have a thing for a special digital device for holding this phone, and this is the kind of digital device it is. It has 5 digits, so it's a pretty cool digital device. At least I think so. Now, first of all, this is a small engine. It's 1.5 liters, and blowing cold air at me, so I'm just going to shut this all the way off. Don't blow cold air at me. It's 18 degrees outside, 31 degrees in the car now because it's in the garage, not heated. But here we're going to see the temperature gauge, and the dotted line, dashed line over the C is going to progress to the left up to halfway, and that'll be normal operating temperature. And in most cars, you're going to think, all right, well, that's normal operating temperature, and I guess that would be about right. But this car, unlike most cars, has an oil temperature gauge. And it will show as basically inactive up until about 122, 123 degrees. Because the smallest I've seen it, lowest I've seen it activate at was 122. So, all right, I guess I should probably open up the garage door here. And we've got a few different views on this 8-inch display. This 8-inch display is what they use in all the low-end Volkswagens that I'm aware of, and my awareness is not fully there, so I'm going to say they'll have it in the Jettas up until SEL and GLI, and in the Taos all the way through until the SEL when it gets a 10-inch display, just like the SEL Jetta gets a 10-inch display, and does the GLI. Those are, in my opinion, better displays, and here's why. We have what I call this 3-panel display, and on the left, by the way, I have oil temperature, and I selected that, obviously, and we can have telephone and compass, and things like that. Settings, just so we know, we can actually discern, we can activate certain settings. So here we can have average economy on there, which I really don't see the point on. Average speed, I really don't see the point on any of that. And the reason I don't see the point on average economy is because, here, let's go back. We have a thing called driving data, and it has fuel economy average in there already, 34.4. That's the average. Since refuel. All right, let's do a little test here. Let's see if we can go to settings. Oops, there we go. And, well, that was helpful. That really worked. Let's try that again. All right, settings. Yeah, there we go. Because I guess I hit no display, which was effective because it gave me exactly what that was supposed to be. Start, stop, information, back, driving data. All right, you know what? It's in driving data. So let's go to driving data. There's the arrow. Go to the right. And let's see. Here, go back to driving data. Go to the left. Here we go. Since refuel, long-term, or since start. So let's try since start. All right. Now, what happens if I go back to a different one? Driving data. I go down. Oh, so much for that. Try again. I'm not accustomed to this quite yet. There we go. Let's try long term. Oh, look at that. 87 hours, 2,800 miles, 32 miles per gallon, 32 and a half almost. All right, that's not bad. So we do have a little bit of flexibility here after all. And here, back to driving data, since refuel, and we can reset long-term and reset since start. All right, but since refuel, you don't reset it until you get some more gas. All right, there you go. Good, so it does do that. All right, well, that's good to know. However, that's not what we want here today. Oops, wrong place. Must have been the wrong place, must have been the wrong time. Okay. And I'm just going to go back to oil temperature. Now, if you look at the coolant temperature here, it's still where it always was. It hasn't gone very far. Oil temperature won't kick in until the lowest I've seen is 122 degrees. And anyway, other views. That's a 3-panel view. And here's the speedometer view. And I don't know why we don't have the speedometer and the tach together. I always did in analog cars, and, so why not here? And what's also kind of interesting is here it says 0 miles per hour. That cannot be changed. And I know that because here on the buttons, this is the view. We push the view, it gives us tachometer, the 3-panel view, and back to speedometer. All right. And if I want to go to the left side, well, you can't do that here. You can only do it here. All right, did you see that? I did the left side, and I go to the right side, and I've got economy and stuff like that, driving data. I'm just going to leave it at economy because that's the way I like it. Hit OK. And the center cannot be adjusted, but the left and the right can. All right, so how about that? And that's actually something I kind of disparaged. And I say, hey, what's going on with you guys? You ding-dongs, stuff like that. I'll tell you one thing that's kind of interesting, though. Even though it does say, here's the gear select, park, it's kind of odd, and then speed is there, and we don't have any choice on these dial views. But at least we have the compass here, the W. Go west, young man. So, and then 310 miles left to go on the gas tank, based on old fuel economy. So, there's that, and then of course there's the tachometer. Now, I'm going to start driving and watch the tachometer. See how it's starting to warm up here on the temperature gauge? Now that's only the coolant. It has nothing to do with the, well, it kind of does. I was going to say it has nothing to do with the oil temperature. It does. But the oil is, the oil temperature has a crankshaft in there, in that oil pan area. And that crankshaft is a big, strong, I hope, heavy duty piece of chunk of metal. And if it's cold, it's really cold, and everything around it's going to be cold. And it's going to take a while for it to warm up. One of the things that'll help warm the engine up, and I don't think you should be doing this early on. Notice I'm driving it really slow and easy. Also, I'm on really small back roads, but I'm going to stay on these for a little bit. All right, I'm going to signal a little bit there just to show that I actually know how to do it. Oh, hey, you know what? It's 18 degrees outside, and I'm really feeling it on the steering wheel. So I'm going to do one more thing. Here, on this button, if I push this, watch the dashboard now. And it says that the heated steering wheel is on. 3, 2, 1. One's enough for me. And I'm in Minnesota. So we're just going to let it sit there, and it'll turn off by itself. All right. So I like the heated steering wheel. This is the SE level. So it's nothing super fancy, but it's pretty nice. The SEL is nicer, but this is nice. All right, if you watch it, we don't watch it. All right, we're just at 20 miles an hour and all this. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the tachometer mode. Oh, you notice how that just changed, how it just shifted? And watch how high it goes before it shifts. I'm going to speed up a little bit here. See the speedometer at the same time. 29 miles an hour. I don't really want to go much over 30 here. Yeah, Anyway, it shifts at low ranges because the peak torque on this engine, it's 184 foot-pounds, which may or may not mean anything to you. It's a relatively high amount, especially for a little 1.5 liter engine. And the let's try. A Honda Civic has 1.5 liter turbocharged, but its peak torque is like 177. So it's good, but this is, in my opinion, a little bit better. Of course, that's a Honda. This is a Volkswagen. You decide. Volkswagen had this first, actually, with a 1.4, and then Honda came out with their 1.5 afterwards. So I think they're watching Volkswagen. Anyway, let's watch it shift here as we move along. And I'll just move along a little bit more standard rate. And it, does shift up. So, and it doesn't go over 2,000 RPM, which is interesting, because the peak torque is, on my 1.4, it was, they said 1,400. So here I'll say 1,500, 1,600. I think I might have seen as high as 1,750 for peak torque, but it's probably around 1,700. All the way up to 3,500 is the peak torque on this engine. So to be shifting at those torque numbers makes a lot of sense, because you get up to the point where you're at the where the engine's got the most power, and that's where you want it to begin for the next gear. So let's go up to about 40 or something here. Now, we're just in D. We really don't know where we are in terms of what gear we're in. But one thing about this gear shift is there, if you notice, it's got a little S. And if you whack it, whack. Now we're suddenly in sport mode. And it says S5, so we're in 5th gear. All right, now I wasn't watching the camera when we did that because of traffic. So I hope you saw it properly. I'll have to go back, and I don't want to do this over again. All right, we're going to be making a left turn. All right. One other thing. Heated seats. I guess I'll turn that on. Low should be enough. And I don't know if you can see it, but we get an occasional snowflake. It looks like every 10 or 12 feet outside, there's a snowflake. It's blowing in from the left, which is the west. So it's definitely getting to be a little bit wintry out here. And now it says 19 degrees. See? The garage is nicer. So I'm just doing this so I can show the gear shift. And here we go. That sport mode went up to 3,000 RPM. Maniac. All right. I'm going to keep it low. All right. And I'm going to knock it down to drive, so we don't have sport mode anymore. Take it easier on the engine, because it's still, even though it's warmed up, look at the lower left-hand corner there. You see the 4 dashes from C to H. So according to that, it's at full operating temperature. However, we go to view. Oh, hey, look at the oil temperature gauge is actually activated. It's 127 degrees. 129. Okay, what do I know? And the thing is, now that it's getting there, now the oil is actually ventilated, the whole oil area. So when it gets hot enough to start boiling water, which is 212 degrees for water boiling, but even before water literally boils, they'll get so hot that it'll start evaporating at a high rate through the crankcase ventilation system, and any water that might be in blow-by, that got blown through, because of the explosions, past the piston rings and into the oil, the higher temperature of the oil is going to push the water out effectively, and you're going to have more oil. So And also the turbocharger, I believe, gets into the 400 degree range. So when oil passes through the turbocharger to cool it off, it really warms up. Now, I don't recommend using the turbocharger to warm up the oil. I think you're better off having the oil warm up gradually as best it can through normal combustion, and that way it can do its proper lubrication. Otherwise, before it's even fully warmed up, and I really think it should be at least 160 degrees before it's fully warmed up by the oil temperature. That's my personal opinion, that you really shouldn't be driving it too hard until then. So there's a pilot in World War I, Eddie Rickenbacker, and he wrote an autobiography. I wonder who it's about. And he was always told with his race cars and his fighter aircraft, World War I biplane aircraft, baby the engine. And you take the engine, take it easy on the engine, don't go ripping the heck out of it, don't go pushing it super hard all the time. And when you do need the power, it'll have it because you've kept the engine in good condition. And that's especially how I feel with the oil temperature. So we got through the gauges, the tachometer a little bit, showing how the shifting works, the differentiation. By the way, the whole thing about having the oil temperature gauge, as much as I want to disparage this 8-inch cluster for various things, try to find an oil gauge, an oil temperature gauge anywhere else on any other car. And I'll tell you something, this is something that I think is virtually exclusive to Volkswagen. It may not be exclusive, there may be others, but there aren't many. And as a nerd, I like the oil temperature gauge. I mean, it's here along with my fuel economy. So yeah, I like the oil temperature gauge. So that's basically it. My little one-handed video here. And I hope it's been of some benefit, by the way. And the other amenities, by the way, as we switch hands, Apple CarPlay, wireless, and there's a wireless charging down in there too. Oh, you know what? Let's turn this on, because I don't mind having it now. On auto, 76 degrees. It's probably a bit much. So that's nice. It's a decent car. It's not the nicest car out there. Honestly, I would suggest, if you want this car, to maybe lease it, and leasing it, get a 15,000 mile a year lease if you drive more. That's kind of the maximum that they do. And the reason I say that is because after that time, you can buy it out and decide to at that time, did you like it enough to buy it or not buy it? And with a lease, you don't have to worry about long-term problems. And Volkswagen, my opinion of Volkswagen is fairly high now, because I had a 2015 Passat until the end of lease. And so it's like 36,000 miles or so when I left the Passat. And then I picked up the Jetta, and that went past the lease to buyout, and then it was assaulted by a deer and totaled. So now this is my rental car while I shop for a new car and argue with the insurance company about the value of my Jetta. And by the way, it had a manual transmission at an SE level in 2018. Those are kind of hard to find, and the prices on Jettas are kind of high because they're really good fuel efficiency cars. And I really found the cars to be quite enjoyable. I thought that they were nice. Now, that's personal opinion, but that's me. And I'm thinking my next car might be something along the lines of a RAV4 hybrid or something like that, something coming off of lease, still under warranty to some extent. So we'll see. But why not another Volkswagen? I'm not sure. because my insurance agent is very much a proponent of certain things, and he's really concerned about Volkswagen and their long-term repair and cost. Well, the car, when it got hit by a deer, was at 77,013 miles. That's 77013 miles. And I'll tell you something. That day, the day that I had been assaulted by the deer, I had picked up the car from a dealership where I had two things done on it. Number one, the battery, which was 6.5 years old, and everybody told me the battery's on borrowed time, you should get rid of the battery. But the car is starting up beautifully. There's nothing battery indicated that was wrong with it. So I got new battery, and the heat seater had gone out again. The first time I repaired it under warranty, the driver's side heat seater, and now I had to do it on my own nickel, and it was like $600 after the diagnostics and all that. So I paid $900, and then the deer assaulted my car later that day, and it was totaled. So I got $900 into the car, and bam. So maybe, more repairs were coming up that I wasn't aware of, and I dodged a bullet. I don't know. But that car was fantastic. And I had driven it to Baltimore and Denver a few times from Minneapolis. It was a really good car, and I enjoyed it immensely. So that's my take on the Volkswagens. And this little Taos, I was kind of considering getting one, but honestly, I didn't want all the flack from John. And I also was kind of wondering, a lot of people have been disparaging this instrument cluster, including myself initially, and I was kind of wondering, do I want to reward Volkswagen for putting this out? Because honestly, they've done better. I had a much nicer display on my 18 Jetta because they're analog gauges, and I had a multi-function display in the middle, and it's much easier to manipulate than the display that they have here. So they'll probably make improvements because they eventually do. So that's it. Oh, as an addendum, I put the phone down in here for the wireless charger. It blows out cool air even though the heater's on, and that keeps the phone from overheating from the charger. It's kind of a nice little feature. Also, I wanted to mention, when it comes to the shifting, let's see, we got a red light here. Come on, it should turn green soon. You know what, let's do this. I was mentioning that it shifts at about where the peak torque is roughly, and that's not so far from the truth. This is about a 150, 160 horsepower engine, maybe 170, I don't know. And so is the Subaru 2.5 liter normally aspirated, but that Subaru engine has peak torque around, I think it's 4,400 RPM, 4,000, something like that. And on this one, the peak torque is like 1,700 RPM, up to 3,500. So the peak torque is definitely lower, and as a result, it won't wait for as much torque. It will, you'll have a much lower rev limit before it shifts. So Subaru might be shifting at like 4,000 or 5,000 RPM, and this will be shifting at lower RPMs. So just as I'm driving along, look at the speedometer and look at the tachometer at the same time. And a low tachometer means a higher gear. So in general, I could put it in sport mode. We can actually see what the gear is. And since I'm coming up to a stop sign, why not? Because this is just regular econo mode, I guess, drive mode, standard mode. So let's go here. And now we're in sport. All right, there we go. And even in sport mode, because I'm not pushing it real hard, it's shifting at lower speeds because of where the torque is. Oh, and we are into a place where we must turn. And I recognize this intersection. You gotta turn right. If you don't turn right, you'll wind up in a shopping center parking lot. Or worse. Maybe just a dead end. So 40 mile an hour speed limit. Shouldn't take long to get there. So let's set cruise control. And there it is. We're in Sport 5. And we're at 2,000 RPM. I'm going to bring it down to drive. And look at that. It went to 7 or 8 because it's no longer in sport mode. Isn't that interesting? So now we're in good economy mode. And how do we see good economy mode? Go there. Look at the right side. We always get these things, 77 and goofy stuff like that, going slightly downhill. Now we're going slightly uphill. But it averages out. But when it's in a higher gear, better fuel economy. That's that. I've kind of made this a little bit longer than it needs to be. So there we are. Here we are in Minnesota. Yeah, sure, you betcha. People outside walking. And this is already an old video because it's the 1st of January in 2025. Trail crossing. The bicycles would come through here, including me. But not today. I was just thinking, I once had a 1993 Honda wagon, the Accord, which I liked tremendously. But it was set up for 55-mile-an-hour speed limits. So when the speed limits went back to 65 and beyond, and I'd driven this car out to Denver, now the car is revving pretty high because it was revving at about 3,000 RPM for 55 miles an hour, maybe 2,500, I'm sorry, but like that. It's 3,000 RPM at 70 is what it was. So now we're just short of 70 at 63 miles an hour here. And I could, I've got an Audi here who wants to probably pass me. Maybe not. Kick it up to 70 for just a second here. And there we are. 2,000 RPM. We're just a slight bit under. But yeah, 2,000 RPM at 70 miles an hour. And I'll tell you something, that is really nice. Because when I had that station wagon, that Honda, in 93 Honda, keep in mind, in Denver, I missed the exit for 76 East. And I thought, well, what the heck, I'll just go north a little bit on 25 and take 80. So I did, and 80 was fine except for one little detail. It had an 80-mile-an-hour speed limit. And if you're doing 80 miles an hour, then your grandma that is in the way, you rolling roadblock, get the heck out of here. And at 80 miles an hour, that car was doing like 4,000, I think 4,500 RPM. And this is a car with, by then, well over 200,000 miles on it. And I did not want to be running it at 4,000, 4,500 RPM continuously, hour after hour, until we got past that 80-mile-an-hour speed limit, back to a more old car friendly 70 miles an hour. So this car, and the Jetta before it in 2015 with the 1.8 and the Jetta with the 1.4, these all do about the same thing, right about 2,000 RPM at 70 miles an hour. They're really well-geared cars that way, and they are made for the Autobahn.